I would like to issue a trigger warning for today's pod. Some of the content as well as images may be strong for some. Viewer discretion is advised. Everybody, welcome back to another pod. I'm Dante, also known as Mechadon, the Don Mecha. Some may call me Rick James. Why? Because I'm cold-blooded. Some may even call me Coach, but if you know, you do know. You guys know what it is. We're in the age of cancel culture. Ooh, we're in the age, big time, of cancel culture, judged by the court of public opinion. And I'll be careful with my words today, but just in case I drop a noun, an adjective, a pronoun that may be out of place, or even an expletive, please don't hold me to it. You guys know what it is. We're just here to pod. In true heDONizm fashion, I always like to start out with gratitude, and that's no exception for today. Hey, it's graduation season, so shout out and salute to all the 2024 graduates. And let me just hone in more specifically to the house, right? Morehouse. Morehouse had a distinguished guest to be a keynote speaker for the commencement ceremony. I'm talking about POTUS, the President of the United States, Joe Biden, was attending Morehouse as a keynote speaker for the commencement ceremony. He made an appeal. You guys know what it is, to the black vote and the black voters, right? Why is it that when we go to our galas, why is it that when we put cameras in front of distinguished individuals during election period, you always get that person who never wanted to contribute, maybe even donate or even have a role when it came to our community, let alone black men, to try to persuade them and grab their vote? I'll get to that in just a second, but he made an appeal during his commencement speech. But also during that time, he made it a clear administrative declaration for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. As you know, across the nation, certain individuals, because of the unrest, some of the unjust, and also war going on outside of our country, individuals have been protesting. Some have been doing it silently. Some has actually been using physical attributions to the actual protest. But that was no exception for the Morehouse commencement ceremony. As President Biden started to speak, some students grabbed their chairs and turned them around. Silently, without causing a ruckus, they just gave a protest. And there was one student that unfurled the Palestinian flag and held it up. Silently, without causing a ruckus, just gently held up the flag. Some students turned their chairs away from the president while he was speaking. Would you guys consider that to be rude, or would you consider that to be a person's prerogative during this time? But as President Biden was given his speech, some were intrigued, and you heard some golf claps. You can see the alums sitting in the audience, and he started to talk about money, and that's where the biggest roar of claps came from. But these are the things we talk about. But President Biden, I know you don't watch the heDONizm podcast, but maybe Madam VP Kamala Harris has a chance to listen to the heDONizm podcast. Here's one thing that I will say. If you're going to talk money in certain communities, put your money where your mouth is. And if you're going to talk the talk, walk the walk. Follow up with Morehouse after you've said all that you've said, because you know November is coming in 2024, and you know who you're up against. Mr. Hush Money is on his way. As soon as he get this RICO or whatever it is out of his way, he's coming for old Joe Biden. Okay? So the Morehouse faculty approved President Biden to come through, and not only did they approve him to come through, I can honestly say by what I witnessed, it was televised here in Atlanta, that President Biden is a Morehouse man. What am I talking about? He received an honorary degree. And this was a unanimous vote by some of the alum and distinguished figures from Morehouse to say that, hey, we're going to hood the man up. But he's the third president to get this honorific for Morehouse. It was President Biden. I'm sorry. It was President Obama in 2013, and it was President Jimmy Carter in 1975. So prior to President Biden attending Morehouse, he sent this crew down there. But not only that, they met with distinguished panels of students of all makes to come and discuss what are your concerns. So it wasn't just a commencement speech. He sent a crew down from the White House that said, hey, yo, talk to us. What are you guys thinking? What's on your mind? What's the temperature? But if you ask me, it was really to aid the students' concerns. Salute to that, but I do hope that it was sincere and genuine. So Morehouse College President David A. Thomas made a point last week to say that, hey, he would shut the commencement ceremony down on the spot rather than to allow police to remove student protesters in zip ties during the graduation speech. Let me just call him out again. That's Morehouse College President David A. Thomas. I'm glad he said that because sometimes we can be a little bit excessive with police force. He said he would shut it down immediately rather than to see zip ties for some of these students who's earned this privilege. Keep in mind, a pod ago, I talked about how some of the people were getting out of pocket at Howard University. There was a young lady that spoke and it really touched my heart because she said, I graduated high school during the pandemic. I couldn't walk. And because of this ruckus, here I am graduating summa cum laude. And I can't walk because they shut down the commencement ceremonies. Getting back to Morehouse, there was mixed reactions in the city, but also amongst student and faculty at Morehouse. Around the city, prior to him even coming, there were mixed feelings. So, in other words, it was somewhat split down the middle. Hey, we can use the pub, right? Anytime an HBCU gets an opportunity to get a distinguished guest, such as the President of the United States, we welcome him. But there were some to say, hey, don't interrupt my moment for you to get yours just to get a vote. But if you ask me, this was a litmus test of the president's strength to gain young voters and also to get that black vote. But on the strength and on the subject of voting, have you went to vote.gov to verify that you are a bona fide registered voter? I've said it before, purges, and you're going to hear things like poll watchers and all kind of funky stuff. So I'm advising people to even print out your cards. And by the time this pod airs, some of you would have voted in your local areas. Hey, listen, read those daggum documents. If you didn't get a chance to vote early, I think some of you would have gotten the opportunity to vote yesterday, which was Tuesday, prior to the launch of the pod on Wednesday, right? Each Wednesday. Sometimes I'll drop it early. It could be lifing, and sometimes you just got to adjust, right? I'm not one of these big time. I'm not Club Shay Shay, right? Or the Joe Budden podcast or one of these Joe Rogans or something like that. Matter of fact, some people are just really coming down to interviews versus getting this NPR style, right? And I model mine somewhat after the Daily Show with a little twist. So rock with me, if you will. We're still growing. But have you verified your voter's registration status? We got a lot of graduates coming up, right? Some are twisting the tassel. So I highly encourage all of you to have dialogues and have conversations with some of these individuals to say, hey, yo, you're growing up. Here's life coming at you. Before you give them those keys or before you give them permission to go live on their own or whatever the case is, right? I'm just being a little dramatic right now. But what I am asking is you have certain conversations with some of these individuals about their civic duties. And for those of you, let me be clear. For those of you that share a hue or you look like me, and you may be sitting back going, well, Don, hey, yo, keep it funky, my guy. Or as the young folks say, my boy, does my vote really matter? What are you screaming for? Why are you asking people to register to vote? Why are you screaming? Why are you using your platform to talk about that, dude? Like, let's get into some hip hop stuff. No, let me tell you what it is. for those that look like me. Our ancestors fought, bled, and even some died for our right to vote. Now think about that for a minute. We are here, they are not. But their purpose, their walk of life was to fight so that we can have the right and the ability to vote. I think we ought to exercise that. And if you don't believe that, right, because seeing is believing, and some people won't pick up a book, and schools are taking history out of the libraries, and schools are taking history out of the context of the book, so some kids will never know. So we got to spread a little information, right? If our vote wasn't important, sir or ma'am, then why is there such a strong effort to suppress, poison, kill our vote? Why is there such an issue when we go to the polls? And let me just say this. I'm not here. Hear me out. I'm not here to sway your vote. Just vote. Your vote matters. There are some things I want to talk about today. President Biden at Morehouse, now being called a Morehouse man. Wanted to talk about that. I also want to talk about good times. And I'm going to keep it cute today. And I'm going to keep it short. But I want to talk about Sean P. Diddy Combs. And we're out of here. Speaking of good times, tell me if this sounds familiar to you guys. Good times. Anytime you meet a payment, good times. Anytime you need a friend, good times. Anytime you're out from under, not getting hassled, not getting hustled, keeping your head above water, making a wave if you can. Y'all know what it is. Temporary laid off, good times. Easy credit ripoff, good times. Scratching and surviving, good times. Now, here's the subject part right here. Here's the subjective part right here. And it's been a big debate since who knows when. But the next line is hanging in a child line or hanging and a jiving, good times. But the end is, ain't we lucky we got them, good times. So I'm putting the ball on the tee, so rock with me if you will. Before there were TV shows, and if I have a younger audience tuning in, let me just say, first of all, thank you. I ask that you guys comment down for the sake of engagement. It helps me, right? It helps me not to see tumbleweeds, even though I do, but I still am encouraged to continue. There is a goal here. But I do ask for you to subscribe so you can see new drops, and also so I can get to the point of exclusive drops. I got some really cool things coming. Rock with me. But I do ask you to like. It costs you nothing, right? But if I do have a younger audience engaging with me, thank you for joining, right? But these are some things that I want to give you a little context on, because you may see things a little one dimension, where we can give you, is the earth flat or is the earth round perspective before I go forward, if you will. Okay. There's some groundwork here. So just rock with me, if you will. But before there were TV shows that were actually launched on the viewing panel that you use today, right? That thing that hangs, or that tablet that you hold in your hand or sit on your desk. But there were episodic radio shows, right? There were no TVs. Families would gather in living rooms, and they would actually grab the entire family plus maybe grandparents or a neighbor to come and witness the episodic shows that were on the radio. The show started with an MC. They even had live commercials, whether it was detergent or cooking things to talk about, you had different segments and purposes for that. So it was somewhat entertaining, because if you could just shut your eyes for a second and hear a TV show, you will actually witness a lot more than you actually see, because the eyes are trained to do one thing and the ears are trained to do another. But there was once a show way back when on the radio that aired that was called Amos and Andy. Some of you may be cringing right now. Some of you may be laughing right now. Some of you may be like, where is he going? Rock with me. But an American radio sitcom that was about black characters. However, there were not black characters on the radio. And they did code switching, if you will, to portray what they thought was a black man's voice. Well, how are you doing today? That scruff is going to sound real good and rough, and it's going to make it sound just a little bit more like a black man. And you didn't know who was behind the radio because this is what you heard. And some of the times you really thought that it could have been portrayed to be a black man. Well, I think so. And that was what was on your radio. However, it was those that had no identity towards Black American or African American. If blackface was a voice, this was it on the radio. And then some. It was a minstrel show over the audio airways. But then they decided to put it on TV. So what about these voices we got here sounding like the black man? We got to put them in front of a camera. Who do we get? Okay. So then they shifted and they had to cast, and they actually found individuals that portrayed these voices of Amos and Andy. Well, the television show spun from the radio show to have three characters: Andy, naive; Amos, the knowledgeable one; and then you had Kingfish, which was the hustler. But they were racial stereotypes in vintage motion picture and TV programming fashion. Let me fast forward just a little bit, but please remember what I just told you. It's Black History for TV and the evolution of the black families and black people on TV. There was a show called Maude, which was a spinoff of All in the Family. Then there became Good Times, which was a spinoff of Maude. Good Times was a show about a below middle class black family. I would say more specifically, they were poor. And they were in a neighborhood in Chi-Town. Shout out to Chicago. Good Times was filmed setting to be in the housing projects. And although these projects were unnamed, you did get an apartment number, 17C, I believe it was. But you didn't get a name of the housing projects. However, when the show theme song came on that I gave to you earlier, and you saw the kids running, everybody knows that was the Cabrini Green projects, which are no longer standing in Chicago. And as the show went off, you saw it as well. Everyone can pretty much pinpoint what that was, but in shows back in the day, you had an aerial view and they didn't really pinpoint where it was. They just gave landmarks of that metropolitan city. But Good Times had characters, that being James and Florida Evans, which were the mother and father, to Thelma, which was their daughter, and their two sons, JJ and Michael. They had a noble and most loyal neighbor and friend of the family named Walona, and Penny, which was Janet Jackson, and many other special guests and noble cameos that came through on the show. Now, rather than to do a deep dive into the show, what I'm getting ready to say is somewhat subjective, because not everybody loved Good Times. It made some people cringe, and that's why I had to give the forewarning that this may catch some people. But remember the Amos and Andy thing as to where I'm going. But Good Times did help some people navigate through tough times with addressing issues such as poverty, inflation, teen pregnancy, drug addictions, hypertension, gang violence, moral and noble issues of the community, and let alone the talent. But some choose not to tune in to Good Times, saying that it was a disgrace to the Black families, Black people. And it was the same for The Cosby Show. But Good Times also helped some men to navigate towards fatherhood, right? There were 3 fathers, and I remember seeing something trending on a timeline way back when, as to which father do you think you fit the image of? They gave Uncle Phil from The Fresh Prince. They gave Heathcliff Huxtable, or Dr. Heathcliff Huxtable, from The Cosby Shows. And last but not least, they gave James Evan, the disciplinarian, from Good Times. But some thought it was disgusting because it was a poor representation of Black men, which was also mentioned in a lot of conscious hip hop as hip hop started to evolve. It was a contradiction to some of what poor versus rich was. Although the Good Times family was poor and they didn't hide behind that, they talked about how rich they were in love, how rich they were in forgiveness, how rich they were in communication, how rich they were with having little but making it stretch to mean a lot of one's household. But some would just say straight up, it was tomfoolery. Some gave it no patience to understand what the show was actually about. But I'll say it again, it was good programming, and to some in certain shows, it displayed nothing but families that were unrelatable to the African American community. And again, not all agreed, but some bought in, right? Some bought in. Good Times had a 6-year run in the 70s, but I want to hone into one episode, right? And it was called The Gang. And this is where JJ was bullied into joining a gang. And later on, he was roughed up a little bit and he had to roll with the crew, and he was found on the street, and his mom and dad had went to the movies and they saw JJ out, and there was this dude named Mad Dog, and he was pretty much the leader of the gang, but JJ was persuaded by him, and Mad Dog pulls out the gun, and as he was trying to shoot James, the dad, JJ jumped in front of his dad and caught the bullet for his dad. So the show went on, and they fast forwarded, and Mad Dog was caught. He was arrested. JJ made it through the shooting. He made it home, but James wanted a peace. James wanted revenge. James wanted to see this dude for trying to take him out and hitting his son. So James does what any bold man would do. Find this dude. And James went to go meet him in court. And James wanted to hear justice served before he gave him a 2-piece. James witnessed the court, and there were so many soliloquies that went on during this episode that talked about overpopulation in jails. Mad Dog couldn't get a day in court because the jails were flooded and he couldn't find a date. The magistrate went on to tell the court that they even had a backlog of certain things. So net, Mad Dog got away scot-free. His mom came to the actual magistrate or the hearing because she was in humility and in shame of Mad Dog's behavior. She knew about this dude. And after the case was over, the mom spoke Mad Dog out and said, "You're good for nothing. You're never going to be nothing." I'm paraphrasing. For those that remember episodes, you know what I'm talking about. If you know, you know. And the mother was played by Donna. You guys may remember Donna, Sanford and Son, Fred Sanford's girlfriend, right? Donna, she was the mother, but she slapped the crap out of Mad Dog, talking about he was good for nothing, and she rolled up out of there. So here again, we have this delinquent who's going to be let go. And James was like witnessing all of this. So Mad Dog turns around and gives this theatrical performance about, "Mama, you always giving up on me, yada, yada. I ain't never had no daddy. I ain't never had nothing. You know I ain't going to be nothing. Why you turn your back on me?" And he gets emotional. And James go, "You know what? I wanted to give you a 2-piece, but dude, you're just a disgrace, and I see why." So certain episodes like that in which Mad Dog had no support, and James wanting to touch him but saying, "You know what? If I touch you, it's just going to add fuel to the fire. But I just wanted to hone in a little bit on that to refresh some people's memories about how some of the shows made an impact and how we actually got to see the character maturation of the father, the wife as the mother, the daughter, and also the two boys who, by the way, slept in their living room. They only had, that's a good question for you guys. How many bedrooms were in the Good Times apartment? It was actually 2. We saw James and Florida's room, but we never saw Thelma's room. Or did we? But I can go on and on about the show, but and I can even go on and on about the episode where JJ wanted to be a shot caller and the feds showed up. He was hanging with the D-boys and the feds showed up and raided the joint. He called his mom and she said, hey, I know you want to be big, bad, and all of that, but you're welcome back home. The episode with a family that had it all together. Their nose was all the way up in the air, but their daughter had an addiction to alcohol. I can recall the episode where Walona Woods fought to adopt Penny. Why? Because Penny was getting mad abused by her mother. And Walona fought and went through the system, and we actually saw that unfold as Janet Jackson, as Penny, went to Walona as her adopted daughter, and she became a cast member of the show. But she was neglected and abused by her mother character on the show. Also, the episode where they wrote off James. Right. And they didn't show the funeral, but they did do a repass. And Florida, as the mother, the widow now, holding it together for the family. Everyone tried to embrace her. She wasn't with the smoke. Get off me. I got it. This is a normal day. I'm not mad. I'm not sad. I'm okay. And everybody wanted to know when she was going to grieve. So this episode, although they took it off of James, it told us a little bit about grieving. And this was the legendary, historic, y'all say it with me, damn, damn, damn Punch Bowl. Shout out to Outkast for the song that we know them horns get the bumping. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. That's Damn, Damn, Damn James was the name of the song with Outkast. Shout out to Wizzy. What up, Wizzy? But how about the episode where JJ had to stand up to his dad and his dad said, I'm going to tell you one time, you better let me know what's up. And he said, no, Dad. James got tight. And you know when that nose got the flaring and them nostrils got the flaring up, he said, now, Junior, I'm going to ask you one more time. No, Dad. I'm going to reach across this belt and you're going to really get a piece of me and I'm going to really give it to you if you don't tell me what's up. And he said it again, no, Dad. So basically, how to face your fears, even if it is your father. The episode where eBay wanted to elope and take Thelma to Africa. Y'all remember she got her hair braided? Thelma was a fine something. Y'all remember Thelma was on the cover of that Jet magazine? Or how many of y'all remember Thelma from that page 42? How many of y'all know about the page 42 in the Jet magazine? Huh? Page 42 or 41. One of them two. But y'all know what it is. Whew. Thelma's still hot to this day, by the way. But when he wanted to elope with Thelma, but the bottom line was Thelma was a young thing. He was out of order. How about the episode where the hustling road preacher wanted to go on tour healing the sick, knowing good and daggum well these were paid scripted actors? Good Times gave us a lot of that. But then again, I'm trying to persuade you that the show had some points, some morals, and it actually helped some families navigate through tough times. And just for the record, I'll just let you guys know, I wasn't a huge fan of the post-James era. When Keith came on there, I started to see more tomfoolery, and I was kind of all over it. I mean, I kind of tuned in, but then again, when you had shows like The Waltons, Dallas, The Partridge Family, you know, some of these other shows, and it was kind of refreshing, right? Whether you liked it or not, it was kind of refreshing to see families or people that not necessarily identified with the same things that we did, but some people that looked like us and that were somewhat now entertaining. It was just refreshing to see on TV. Do you guys remember when you heard the song, Now the World Don't Move? I don't know if that's the lyrics, but when Different Strokes came on, it was almost like we was getting a bop on for some of these shows when they come on, just because it was refreshing to see someone that looked, not that we loved the show, although it was somewhat entertaining. It was just refreshing to see someone that looked like us. But I can say for the references that from Good Times, it impacted some, but it left some with a head scratcher. Now, I'm not standing on business by saying that Good Times was gospel, but it was somewhat groundbreaking as to what they had to portray. Now, this was under Norman Lear, right? The show went on to get new production, which came with new money, more dollars, more punchlines, and at some point, it just wasn't working. Now, put the ball on the tee for this point and this point only. Good Times did a reboot. They did a reboot. They did a reboot, and this was an animated reboot. So you may be thinking, how can they animate Good Times? Well, they did. Yes, they did. In the words of Samuel Jackson, yes, you did. Yes, you did. And they did an animation of Good Times. Let me just name some of the things first before I get into it, because I want to leave you with the cliffhanger, as I always do on the heDONizm podcast. The executive producers, Stephen Curry, Norman Lear, that name sounds familiar, right? And Seth MacFarlane. Some of the animated character voices, and I'm not going to name them all. I'm just going to name a few notable ones. Jay Farrell, Marseille Martin from Blackish, J.B. Smoove, Cree Summer, Different World, Godfrey, the Godfrey Complex, the comedian Godfrey, the one that was just on Club Shay Shay, Lil Rel, the comedian, Affion Crockett, that just put out a hip-hop story, which I thought was pretty good. I'll say it again. Jay Farrell, Marseille Martin, J.B. Smoove, Cree Summer, Godfrey, Lil Rel, Affion Crockett, Tisha Campbell. But I got to say this about the reboot. Horrible. Trash. Hot garbage. A good waste of time. Now, usually you hear of certain things, right? I am a part of a movie review club where I get special screenings and I get to do actual reviews on the movie. I saw nothing about this one. Not that they owe anything to me or you for that matter. But if you're going to have a show that made an impact on Black America and TV from the 70s and you do a reboot with some of the same font and some of the same tunes from the song, which was impactful and made people think about what they were actually singing as the show came on. Let me just say this, dear Netflix, stop playing with our top. Like, stop playing, yo. Like, y'all been stringing us along since the pandemic, right? Right. And also since we gave our cousins our Netflix passwords and y'all stopped that. But then you said, hey, yo, I'm going to up the price and your shows have been hot garbage. And then you'll put a premiere fight on. Or you'll string us along with some hot shows, right? Some foreign joints, right? And then come back and give us a Cat Williams drop, right? Some more hot garbage, and then give us a drop of maybe a Dave Chappelle exclusive or a Tom Brady roast or something like that, just to string us along. Right? Like, stop playing with our top, yo. This is some straight up bullshwanky that y'all did when y'all dropped this Good Times reboot. Like, how in the hell did someone sign off on this? Or did they? Like, I don't get it. Like, this was some straight garbage. And here's one thing I gotta say. This was the head scratcher for me. How big was the check? And I'm talking to the actors because I just named some of the actors that did the thing. I mean, Netflix, for you to think that this was the market, I'm telling you again, this was garbage. It was stereotypes. I'm really tired of Netflix. And I only held on to Netflix is because we've gotten away from VHS. We're getting away from DVDs, right? The movie theaters, I'm still on my Save the Cinema campaign. However, the movie theaters, the backlog is still slim from the SAG-AFTRA strike, right? Come June, the movies are supposed to spin up or spin up a little bit more, and we're starting to get some quality, but it's still sus right now when it comes to the quality of the movies from the backlog, because now people are starting to put those unfinished movies back into motion and finish them out, right? And a lot of our classic artists are actors and actresses are getting older and are not able to deliver, and they're trying to use AI to supplement for that good thing that we had. But AI, get out the door. We don't want that. We want organic actors and thespians in front of the screen giving us what we want. But back to this animation, if I didn't say it before, trash. I'm really tired of what Netflix is doing right now. And it goes back to early last year, when Netflix laid off all of those people. And then I had to hone in and go, okay, everybody does layoffs quarterly. What impact was this? This was call centers. And you know who's in call centers, right? And I found the demo of some of the people that were laid off. But nonetheless, Netflix, as much money as you're making, you had to lay off that many people. That many people. I understand companies do cutbacks. I do understand. But Netflix, you did it for no reason, but for selfish reasons. That's what my research showed me. But let me come over to Mr. Seth MacFarlane. Listen, yo, I hope you hit your pinky toe on the edge of a coffee table. I think this dude is one script away from doing some racist bullshwanky, right? Like, he's the man of many voices, if you will. But for you to jump on a Good Times reboot, stay out of that, fam. Like, stay away from that. Like, did you think, oh, hey, yo, they did the Boondocks, we can do Good Times? Boondocks was not a reboot. Boondocks was something revolutionary and original. It wasn't a reboot. It didn't come from an origin of something. Right? Boondocks was its own growth. Shout out to Regina. Boondocks was its own baby, if you will. Good Times was birthed from the 70s, from the TV sitcom Good Times. I mean, for the language to be as distasteful as it is in this animated series is whack. To depict some of the things that the show never displayed was whack. They have an actual little baby on the show that's pushing bricks and shooting heat, delivering some hot ones. And his language is mad foul. I don't recall any of that being on the show Good Times. But back to Seth MacFarlane. Yo, he gives me the same vibes as the Dodos did with the show that I talked about early, as if blackface was radio or blackface was a voice. To me, Seth kind of gives that, right? I'm not calling him that. I don't know him personally. But for you to try to emulate certain characters, to me, when you can go and get other people that can give you that genuine and authenticity, sometimes you just give me that Amos and Andy vibe. And that I say you're skating with hot, you're on ice with hot skates. But I'm not saying that. Here's what I am saying. A couple of things. This is not a reboot, right? It's a disgrace to the original sitcom. I've said what I said, but I do have to ask, was there a screen test? Did you have an audience? Did you put this out to a think tank or anybody that says, hey, what is your opinion? Did you reach out to anybody? And especially the fact that it's depicting the black community. Did you reach out to, well, I guess some of your actors read the damn thing. So I'm saying, hey, actors, were y'all really pushing Pete? Were y'all really trying to pay? Were y'all paper chasing that hard? Are y'all that? Hey, is the well that dry? Cree, Tisha Campbell, JB Smooth, Lil Rel, Afion Crockett, my guy. What did you? Marseille from Blackish, the twin. Marseille. I talked about you in the pod. How Marseille Summer. I was shouting you out. When I heard your voice, I'm like, oh, there go my girl. Marseille, no. And I'm thinking maybe they did a read test, right, as a prototype. And they said, no, scrap the project. And they probably had NDAs all across the table. And Stephen Curry, are you trying to be LeBron James Productions and jump in on this Hollywood thing? Steph, your name is behind this? Y'all really pushed this out, or did y'all say, nah, we on second thought, it was a prototype. We didn't really want to put it out. Netflix said, go with it. But I'm telling you, go look at it for yourself. And I say start with the trailer. You don't have to do the waste of time like I did, because I think you would actually puke. But just try and watch the trailer, and I guarantee you would find it disgusting. Now, if I didn't say this earlier in the pod, I just want to issue a trigger warning here. Some of the images and some of the content that I'm going to discuss here may be offensive and hard to grasp, so viewer discretion is advised. But you all saw it. I wanted to be slow. I didn't want to talk about this. I didn't want to visit it. A couple of pods back, I even named the podcast, trying to be a little humorous. I can actually say and admit it was a little bit for clickbait. I was kind of going with the wave of what the world was doing. In the world of podcasting, sometimes it's about waves. Sometimes it's about striking while the iron is hot. And if you look at this podcast, I mean, look, it's me. You don't see a panel of people here like you do in some podcasts, right? You don't see BC and A-list celebrities sitting here on the pod. You don't see millionaires sitting behind the desk. You see old Dante sitting at the desk. You see Mecca Don, the Don Mecca, right? You see old Coach sitting right here, right? You see old Rick James. Why? Because I'm cold-blooded and bold. But I'm just going to say this. I wanted to be slow to talk about this. Now, CNN dropped the tape. Where did the tape come from? Everybody's scratching their head. But I can tell you one thing. There's a hotel associated with it. And if you look at the hallways, and if you've ever been to this hotel, it pretty much spells out where it is. I wonder. This tape was leaked. Sean P. Diddy Combs was seen on tape walking down the hallway in a bathrobe, walking after or trying to get to a young lady who had a hood on. Obviously, she was doing a walk of shame, trying to get up out the joint, like I would advise anybody, not just a young lady, anybody, in a situation where they need to get the hell up out of there. She was getting out. She was moving as swift as she could, probably trying not to stir a ruckus. I'm not adding to it. I'm just giving you interpretation of what I saw. The gentleman in the towel only, no shirt, no shoes, just some socks, I believe. As the young lady was trying to go to the elevator, the gentleman that was identified as Sean P. Diddy Combs took his hand and with all force of a man grabbed this petite young lady by the neck and pretty much buckled her knees to pull her backwards. In officiating, there's a criteria for horse collar. This was worse than that. The video went on further to show him, which it looked like he was stomping the young lady. It was wild, yo. It saddened me because this is someone I looked up to when it came to perseverance as a boss. Someone I looked up to when it came to keeping the party going. Someone that I looked to when it came to giving us one of the hottest MCs that ever touched a microphone. Somebody that I knew that used to be a dancer, and if I didn't give you my curriculum vitae as to how hip-hop changed my life, I was a dancer. Remember them from the video, treat them like they want to be treated. Diddy was in the background dancing. That was my flow. That was my style of dance. Couldn't help but see him. Talking about the guy that stood by the late, great Andre Harrell with Uptown. Talking about the guy that worked with the queen of hip hop, MJB. I'm talking about the gentleman that brought on through the family, Lil C's and Lil Kim. I'm talking about the legacy, y'all. And I didn't want to talk about this. Some are saying because of the statute of limitation from the hush money trial. No, I'm not talking about former President Donald Trump. I'm talking about the Sean Combs versus Cassie Ventura. There was a 35-page civil doc, but this case is now closed. This case entailed the R word. This case entailed the S and A. This case entailed physical abuse, basically violating his then girlfriend. But all was settled out of court for 30 M's. But this tape, I'll tell you straight up, it was disgusting. It was like no matter the media platform, the tape was being shown. And it's almost like, as I say all the time, we're in the age of cancel culture judged by the court of public opinion. But did I also, or should I also mention, this is also a day and age of receipts. And all of the allegations that we knew of, right? All of that hush money trial, the Sean Combs via Cassie Ventura. Hey, don't say nothing. We're just gonna give you 30 M's. Shh. Well, you may be asking, well, I mean, he's going to jail. Well, I'm no legal expert, but some legal beagles are stating that because of the statute of limitations and because a settlement was given, this case is closed. But you can't unsee the imagery. And it'd be different if it was still shots, but it was actual video surveillance of this grown-ass man taking down this petite young woman. It made the impossible to think of possible to see. Some legal analysts are saying that this is more information leading up to a RICO for Diddy. And I hate that. You already had HSI to come to your crib. And let me just pause here for a second. Let me just pause here parenthetically and say King Combs, which is Sean Combs' son. Hey, yo, fam, I understand that you're trying to do this hip hop thing. I understand you're trying to get to the bag. It's in your DNA. But I tell you what, you better lay low. You better lay low. You remember when Whitney Houston was at them award shows and she said that? Rest in peace, Nate Dogg. Rest in peace, Whitney Houston. Listen, some of the former bad boy artists, and I'm not naming any names. Y'all know who they are. I got mad respect for them. But sometimes you got to know how to keep folks' name out your mouth when you don't have all the facts. But some former bad boy artists are saying they saw this day coming. But I have to ask you guys, what's your thoughts on it? Comment down below if you feel like it. If you have the courage, because this takes a lot of courage to talk about it. But if you think it's disgusting, comment down below. I think it's disgusting. But what does this say about the legacy of Bad Boy? What does it say about the legacy of the late, great Christopher Biggie Smalls Wallace? What does it say about MJB? And I've asked you all this before, but I'm asking y'all again. Y'all still sipping De Leon? Y'all still sipping Ciroc? Well, I don't know if you guys know, but according to the drink brand, but before y'all start boycotting, listen, they've already cut ties with Diddy, right? He went way back when and said that there was some racial allegations of how he was marketing a brand to certain culture, right? But the brand themselves, and I don't want to name them, they just said, hey, yo, we're just going to cut ties. So please keep in mind that he's not tied to that anymore. But let me just say this, right? Some artists out there who have went through the demise of SA, domestic violence, or even physical abuse, they've had a hard hill to climb coming back from this thing. Sean Combs, I don't think that's any exception for you. Hey, listen, Sean Combs no longer affiliated with Revolt TV. Sean Combs no longer affiliated with Ciroc or DeLeon. Sean Combs no longer affiliated with the brand that was once at, I believe it was Macy's. I think you're going to see more of those at Goodwill right now than ever before. So if you're looking for some Sean John suits or some Sean John shirts or some Sean John track suits, you may find them at Goodwill. Back to King Combs, trying to stir up some mess with Fitty. Fitty just launched G-Unit Studios in Shreveport, Louisiana. And Fitty, don't feed into that. Don't feed into that. Allegedly, 50 has a documentary that he's working on right now about Diddy. I don't think Fitty cares for Diddy at all. And I'm going to tell you what I'm not going to do for the sake of the integrity of hip hop. I'm not going to continue to drag Sean P. Diddy Combs, right? But there is a question that I have to ask, because I've asked before, and I'll be honest, heDONizm podcast listeners, y'all wasn't honest with me. I asked y'all a while back, are y'all still bumping R. Kelly? Crickets. So I'm going to ask y'all now, y'all still bumping Bad Boy? Maybe some of the artists, but are y'all still listening to Diddy Victory? Y'all remember that joint? And I'm going to tell you right now, one of my favorite groups that came out of the Bad Boy camp was Dirty Money. I love Dirty Money. Last Train to Paris was a hot joint that Diddy made, and I'm going to have a hard time not listening to it because there's some tracks on there that helps me get through the gym. Right? See, the sun don't shine forever. Y'all remember that joint? You Can Hate Me Now. Y'all still listen to that? Hey, listen, men lie, women lie. Numbers don't. But this was a bad look for the guy. This was a really bad look for the guy. Hey, we knew about it. Now, if you can read, the takeaway from that was not persuasive. It was what it was. There were some allegations of SA and R with this young lady. Now the physical abuse aspect. And it's disgusting. It's mad disgusting. Now, Diddy did come out recently and issue a FaceTime apology.
It's so difficult to reflect on the darkest times in your life. Sometimes you got to do that. I was up. I hit rock bottom. But I make no excuses. My behavior on that video is inexcusable. I take full responsibility for my actions in that video. I'm disgusted. I was disgusted then when I did it. I'm disgusted now. I went and I sought out professional help. I had to go into therapy, and go into rehab. I had to ask God for His mercy and grace. I'm so sorry. But I'm committed to be a better man each and every day.
Does that help you guys with the level of forgiveness? Does that help you guys continue on with normalcy? Or is this a thing where you actually have to give some time to? Is this another one that bites the dust? Is there something going on right now where we're starting to see the demise of a lot of individuals? I'll say this, I hate to see what's next. But are y'all still listening to R. Kelly? Are y'all going to still listen to Diddy records? So they've closed the chapter in partnership with Diddy for the drink. So I guess when it comes to Ciroc and Dillion, y'all drink up. Hey, I'm going to get out of here, but I want to leave you all with what recently I heard as a quote of the year from this hush money trial. And I'm talking about with former President Donald Trump. I have lied, but I'm not a liar.
I have lied, but I am not a liar.
I've done bad things, but I'm not a bad man.
And I have done bad things, but I am not a bad man.
Michael Cohen. You guys know what it is. We're in the age of cancel culture, judged by the court of public opinion and also the court of law and also the book of receipts. Let me just pause here for a second and say, hey, listen, you don't always have to be first to report information, but sometimes just have a little integrity about it. Some people are so quick to go and throw, but not all people are patient to deliver. I was trying to be careful today with my words, but just in case I dropped a noun, an adjective, a pronoun, or even an expletive that was out of place, please don't hold me to it. You guys know what it is. I'm just here to pod. Until we meet again, guys. Peace.